Daughters of Reddit, what is something you wish your father knew about girls when you were growing up? Now that I'm an adult, I realize just how wonderful my father really is. Not just in comparison to others, but he is an objectively amazing father. He taught us children the hard life lessons while still protecting us. He taught us to be self-sufficient and independent. He taught us to work hard and don't give up just because things get challenging. He busted his butt to make sure we got to go on vacation and experience life. He taught me to hunt, fish, and fix a car. He also taught me to garden and grow my own vegetables, how to take care of livestock and other animals with compassion. However, he also treated me more like a son than a daughter. I only wish that my father would have acknowledged that I'm a girl and it's okay for me to like dressing up and that it's okay to throw like a girl. Granted, I got a full ride to college for sports, and that's partly because I had to hang with the boys and my dad didn't want me to be a great female player but just a great player in general. I think he messed me up only in the sense that it's extremely difficult for me to date. I'm either too intimidating to strangers or one of the boys to people I know. I think I lost my feminine side because I am so close to my dad and he was slightly dismissive of my emotional side. I had to be tough and stoic. I suppose I shouldn't complain. I just feel like if my dad were less of a hard butt and treated me more like a daughter than a son, I would fit in the more. Maybe be able to get a date instead of always just being a bro. That being said, I am thankful for the life skills he provided and the protective eye he still has watching over his baby girl. My dad actually was an amazing man and I think very special as a dad. He really encouraged our independence and our want to learn about anything and everything, which I think a lot of dads forget to do. He focused a lot on education and as a result my brothers and I were reading very early, which helped us be interested in things like the science museum and the zoo and any sort of science program on TV. He used to just let us run crazy as kids because he knew how important it was for us to savor actually being kids. When I was little, I made a mud pit in the backyard. We had a hole that our Weimaraner dug and it got filled with water, so 3-year-old me thought it would make the perfect mud pit. After about half an hour of playing by myself, my dad came outside and saw me, naked, covered in mud, in the pit, where other parents probably would have been mad. He laughed and grabbed the camera. As we got older, he encouraged our independence and hobbies. For my brothers it was gaming, and they made a lifelong career from their interest in gaming. For me it was theater, then science, and eventually wildlife. My dad wanted to be a biologist but never had the drive or money to finish college, so I used to teach him all about genetics and about how the phylogenetic trees of various organisms had changed. He knew a lot, but wanted to know all about how science had changed and what the new concepts were. He outfitted me with field gear, and when we would go camping or hiking together, we'd rock flip and look for herpetofauna. He helped me with a plant project a few years ago and that was probably the most fun we had. He just never discouraged our interests and passions, which is so important. This doesn't really have a point anymore. I think I just needed to write this out. My dad died 3 weeks ago very unexpectedly and no man on earth could rival how amazing he was. He truly is responsible for our independence and wonder of the world, and I think more dads need to be like him. Dads, let your daughters and sons learn freedom. Let them explore the world and make an effort to be interested in their interests, no matter how weird or dumb you think they might be. Let your kids be kids and do dumb things sometimes. Also, always let your daughter know that you have her back. Whatever stupid decision she makes, trouble she runs into, dumb man she dates or gets involved with, you've got her and you'll be there for her when things fall apart. My dad was so good about that. That it's great you're extending the offer to spend time together, but when you invite your kid to the garage to help with something, actually have them help with something. For context, my dad would be working on his boat engine or something, and he'd say, "Come help me with this," and then I'd sit on a bucket for 20 minutes watching him in silence, and finally wander off out of boredom. Looking back, it's great he wanted to spend time with me and I appreciate that, but being present and being involved are two different things. Treating every boy interested in your daughter as your enemy does both of you a disservice. My dad was very overprotective. Anytime a boy had a crush on me, he would be immediately added to my dad's hit list, even if he was perfectly kind and respectful. After a certain point, I just stopped listening to my dad's complaints. In my eyes, he had lost the right to give input about my relationships. Unfortunately, when I was 17 I became entangled in an abusive relationship. My dad hated the guy, but since he also hated every one of my previous suitors, I didn't interpret his concerns as legitimate. On top of that, since he was so busy trying to prevent me from having relationships, he never talked to me about what a healthy relationship looks like. Unwanted inappropriate attention from grown men doesn't always come from strangers. It comes from family friends too. Pay attention to your friends' behaviors and comments around your kids. My dad cut off a longtime friend after catching him leering at me in a bathing suit at a pool party when I was only 12. This goes for moms and sons too. My mom definitely had some friends that were creepy to me and she would laugh it off if I said anything. Don't make comments about my friend's breasts. Don't make comments about the small size of mine. Stop talking about teenagers' breasts, Jesus Christ. Make sure she is not afraid to bring home the person she is dating. Encourage open communication about relationships, dating, respect, etc. If your daughter is afraid you're going to be waiting on the porch with a shotgun or you're going to read the riot act to whomever they bring home, they are more likely to sneak around behind your back. It's not the threat of physical harm that is the issue. Most people would likely agree they've heard of version of this and laughed it off as a joke. It's the sense of doubt that it creates in young women. The feeling that they are not capable of making good decisions on their own when it comes to the relationships they choose to pursue. We keeps preaching that we want our daughters to feel empowered to make their own choices. It starts by removing the need for them to choose partners that meet your approval. Instead, empower them by teaching them how to navigate relationships, have the tough and uncomfortable conversations, let them make a few bad decisions so they can appreciate and identify what healthy male interaction looks like. How to put hair in ponytails. Brush long hair in general. Just thinking about it 20 years later makes my scalp hurt. Also, to include the daughter in stereotypically male housework. I can cook and load a dishwasher like my life depends on it, but I can't do any sort of maintenance like putting up a picture frame or unclogging a sink. If you spend a good portion of your daughter's childhood talking about how much better and easier a son would be to raise, don't be surprised when your daughter grows up confiding almost exclusively in her mother and never in you. My dad actually did a pretty good job of raising me as a single dad, as I'm pretty sure my stepmother contributed nothing to my upbringing. The only thing I guess he could have done better was been more knowledgeable about what he called female issues. He didn't really understand periods and cramps and all that associated nonsense because when he was growing up, he was never taught about them and men didn't need to learn. It was just icky to him. When you do something wrong, apologize. Don't just try to ignore what we just fought about and try to be our friend 15 minutes later. When you try to ignore our problem, it hurts us. It makes us angry. We won't want to be friends. My friends and I have almost all had this issue with our dads. The worst thing, though, is when you try to have someone else fix things for you. My dad has asked me to be this middleman for my younger sister. My friend has been asked by her dad, and some others have mentioned their dad sending in their mom. It doesn't make things better, and a lot of the time, makes that middleman lose respect for you. Respect us as people and apologize to us. That it doesn't make you look weak to show affection once in a while. My dad hardly ever hugged us or said he loved us. How to build and support a healthy self-esteem and lifestyle habits. The things you say and the way you treat her can leave a lasting impression on your daughter. I was a latchkey kid in an Asian household filled with cheap convenience foods. 3 for $1 hot dog bayos, Chinese crackers, etc. and lack of income for things to do outside of watching TV at home. So, I grew up overweight and uninformed about healthy lifestyle habits. Since tweenhood, my dad was constantly on me about my body and bluntly laid it out that I would never find a boyfriend. If he saw me in a t-shirt or shorts, he'd comment on how big my arms, thighs looked. I'm now in my late 20s and still refuse to wear tanks, short sleeves, skirts, dresses, shorts because of that idea that has been ingrained in my thought process. The link between being fat and being single still has a huge presence in my mind. My dad passed away last year from his own struggles with his health. Cancer, diabetes, hypertension. Since then, I've made my own lifestyle changes and went to therapy. I am about halfway to my weight end goal and I've discovered a love for hiking, spin classes, and yoga. but trying to build up self-esteem through reframing of things and positive self-talk has been the hardest struggle of all. Don't just assume your daughter won't be interested in your activities because they aren't stereotypically girly or because once as a small child, she didn't want to do it. Not wanting, say, go hiking or fishing when I was 5 years old doesn't mean I never ever want to do it. Keep trying to get your kids involved in your life and don't just give up. You're teaching them not to share things about themselves and losing the chance to bond over something you love. At the same time, if they don't want to do the thing, don't make them do the thing, but don't stop asking them to do the thing unless they tell you to stop asking. When your daughter is going through puberty and starts getting her period, don't write off the things she's going through. There's all sorts of new hormones swirling around in there, and they're gonna affect her mood. She's getting periods, they are probably gonna hurt. Being in pain makes you grumpy, but don't write off every instance of anger or bad temper as being because you're on your period. Maybe her mom doesn't get bad ones. Maybe you've never thought about it because your wife is a grown woman who has learned to deal with her periods and the assorted mood swings and pains and moved on. Your daughter hasn't yet. Be a little more thoughtful. Help teach her ways to manage what she's feeling. If she's in a lot of pain, and it doesn't change after a while, take her to a doctor. Maybe nothing's wrong and she got crap luck, but she could have endometriosis or cystic ovaries. Stick up for her at the doctor. Lots of women have trouble finding doctors who will listen to them about their pain, and it's very hard to advocate for yourself when you're only 14 and throwing up from pain. My dad is awesome. I remember him telling me once that the best thing a father can do for his daughter is love and respect her mother. All the women in his life, really, showing respect to women, and all people, really, is a good way to teach a child that they deserve respect and that they ought to give it. Don't be scared of having your picture taken. If your daughter wants to take pictures of you, or especially with you, let them. My dad died when I was 13 years old and then I realized that all of his hiding from the camera meant I was left with only a handful of photos and he wasn't in any of our home videos. You don't realize how important they can be until you aren't able to make new ones. That it is best to have a personal bond with your father, a hobby or activity that's the two of you no matter how small, and not him just be there when the whole family is together. When our outdoor cats would get ticks I quickly alerted my father and we removed them. For him a chore and for me the one thing that was us doing something together. That not every instance of anger or sadness on my part was because it must be that time of the month. My dad is a great guy all around, but used to bring that up, even jokingly, were I too often. That we take everything he says to heart and he has to be kind. His words can leave deep wounds that stay with her for a lifetime. There are some men, and boys, who are perfectly decent when other men are around, but are not nice to women, and girls, when there are no other men around. Believe your daughter about her own lived experiences, even if you didn't witness them yourself, and believe other women about their own lived experiences as well. If your daughter grows up hearing you talking about how your mother and sister were clearly overreacting when they said your childhood neighbor was creepy, because, after all, he was always perfectly decent to you, your daughter is not going to go to you when your own neighbor is creepy to her when you're not around. Our standards of how we expect to be treated by men come from how you treat our mothers. Show her kindness, we will expect kindness. Treat her like crap and we assume being treated like crap is normal. I came here to say this. Also, how he treats you contributes to that. For a long time, I didn't know why I kept getting involved with guys who invalidated my feelings, gaslighted me, lied to me, and put me on the backseat as far as priorities go. That's how my dad treated my mom and how he treated me. I'm not sure about girls in general. To me, I'd rather have had a dad who was there than a dad who was successful and a workaholic. When your dad is gone, you remember the silly little things, the bedtime stories he told you, playing with you on the beach, having ice cream together. Be a father who is present in your daughter's life. Play with her when she's small. Tell her stories. When she's older, listen to her. Take an interest in her interests even if they sound silly. Take an interest in her life in general. That's all anyone can ask. I have the most wonderful father in the world. This post isn't going to be things I wish he knew, but more things he did that were awesome when I was growing up, since I'm seeing a lot of daddies with little girls commenting that they're reading this post. My dad never hesitated to do girly things with me. He was the one who took me school shopping. We would often hit Starbucks and then pick up chocolate covered strawberries afterwards. He would fix my hair for school and paint my nails for me. I remember wanting a head full of tiny braids. This was the 90s, and he spent hours of his Saturday afternoon braiding. We played with Barbies and he actually came up with storylines for them and put effort into it. On the other hand, he also never kept me from doing tomboy things. I raised baby calves, helped him wash cars, and worked on the lawnmower. When I was little, we had daddy-daughter dates where we would go to Chuck E. Cheese or mini golfing. When I was in middle school and high school, we would go to the pool together and lay out and talk. A few years ago, we got tickets to see Miley Cyrus Bangs tour and got drunk together and had the best time. He was always patient with anything regarding my self-esteem. He helped me lose weight when I was in middle school and waited for hours for me to get ready before we went somewhere, and never, ever commented on anything other than to compliment me. The biggest thing I think that he did, and still does, is to encourage my independence. He helped me through school and constantly reminds me that I am a strong woman and that I don't ever have to get married if I don't want to. My mother used to put a lot of pressure on me to settle down. He is my friend along with being my dad. I'm forever thankful for him. This is more general to parents, but I think it applies a lot to girls and fathers. Her feelings are real and valid. The problem she's sobbing about, whether it's a boy or a fight with a friend or whatever, may seem trivial or silly to you, but those feelings are so important to her right now. In 10 years you can tease her about Jimmy from science class who she thought liked her but ended up asking her friend Alice to the dance. Now is not the time. Don't belittle her about it. Listen to her. Ask her questions. Learn about her life. It may seem boring to you, but my dad listened to me. He remembered my friends' names and would ask me about them. He asked me seriously about what I wanted for the future. And you know what? I'm 25 now and I still confide in my father. He calls me just to chat and I tell him about my feelings and I ask him about his. It only takes one mean joke to put that wall up and it is hella hard to take down. Male here, and I couldn't agree more. I used to talk about video games at great length with my father. We're talking early 90s here, so there typically weren't epic stories or anything. He always listened and seemed to care. Having since grown, I have come to realize he had zero interest, but he was happy to listen because I had interest. Your children are always more important than your second or third wife. I think this is more important of a comment than many realize. When my parents divorced, my dad was always taking trips with his new GF on weekends. I was supposed to be with him. It was excruciating when I was 15. That girls are not delicate little creatures who can't do anything. I always wanted to be an auto mechanic and help work on cars, and he'd never let me. He told me girls can't do man jobs because they cause drama on the job sites when all the guys are worried about sleeping with them. Now I am always having car trouble and have to pay out the butt to get a mechanic to fix simple things because he wouldn't just show me how to fix it. I'm a dad who grew up with 3 brothers. All of my brothers had a boy first. I had a girl first and was terrified of how I was going to raise a little girl. She's 14 now and is awesome to be around. I have been a stay-at-home dad since she was 6 months old and we have a tight relationship. My son is 18 months younger and I have learned that the big things aren't that different. I think it's extremely important to take an interest in what they love. Their interest may not align with yours entirely, but showing an interest in their hobbies is the best way to connect with them as they get older. Don't try to pick their hobbies or interest for them either. Kids are their own people. If you are looking forward to tea parties but your daughter prefers baseball, get out there in the yard and toss the ball around. If you are looking forward to bonding over football but your daughter wants to play princesses, then get ready to dress up. Just treat your child as an individual. Raise the child you have, not the child you want. This is the goodest flyboy. He will bring you 10 years of happiness in exchange for a like on this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.